So this is obviously the workshop about succession planning to prevent chapter burnout. And it's something that's near and dear to my heart, not just for when I was involved with the CPF chapter, but for any board that I've ever been on. It's an issue. It's always an issue. Um, so it is so much easier if we do a little bit of planning. So next slide, please. The thing that we're going to have to look at first is what happens when your volunteers get burned out, and it's obviously not a good thing to have happen. And if you do, like I say, a little bit of planning, then things can go so much smoother, and you won't be stuck with a board that doesn't have enough board members, where you can't have a quorum. There's so many things that can go wrong where events that you normally would be taking care of are, gone by the wayside because you just don't have the volunteers in place. So, all right, next. So what is burnout? There you go. Demanding work-related tasks. It's just you feeling, everybody knows what it is. I think you can feel burnt out as a parent. You can feel burnt out as a spouse. You can feel burnt out as a volunteer, as a worker. Hopefully these are short-lived, and then you can get past it. So we all have experienced it at some point. But the difference is that with volunteer burnout, you're not getting paid to suffer through it. So that's not a good thing. And the difference between burnout and volunteer fatigue is that when you give a volunteer the same job to do over and over, and their interest starts to wane, that's really fatigue. But if you put them in another role, maybe refresh things a little bit, then they get revitalized, it's good, and then they're happy to forge ahead. But burnout is a little more serious because the volunteer might start bad-mouthing the organization or having a bit of a negative reaction to things, and might sort of have this bad karma vibe that they put out that puts other people off or brings other people down with them. So it's never a good thing. So for many of us, joining the local CPF executive might also be the very first time you've ever actually sat on a board. And this is an operational board that you're on, where you do a lot of the work. So there's no reason why you need to reinvent the wheel. There's all kinds of fabulous resources to help you through this process so that you can run a really dynamic board that does great work, and your organization comes out of it smelling like a rose, which is what we want, right? So let's not start from scratch each time. Okay, next. So what is volunteer burnout? Well, obviously, you can see the excessive workload, that sort of thing. You're tired and stressed, maybe feeling resentful and underappreciated, disengaged. There's so much work to do and there's not enough volunteers. Why are you getting stuck with everything? You feel pressured, and you keep saying yes because you don't want to let people down. That's very common. You can get kind of testy with others. So next. So why does this happen? Why does it happen? Well, it could be because it's poor volunteer role selection. Anybody will do, anybody can fill this role. Like that's not always a successful approach. The chapter executive calls on the same people to do the same work over and over, and too often. And you've all heard the adage, if you want something done, ask a busy person because they'll do it. And it's really unfair to the busy person. So, and it could be because of inexperienced leadership. That's completely normal, especially if this is the first time they're involved on a board of directors. And it could also be maybe role ambiguity. So, all right, next. Okay, so this is what we say to ourselves, right? There's so many things if you say, I'm fine, then perhaps you're in denial and it's your nagging. Well, maybe you're looking for a scapegoat. Oh, I can take on more. It's just, you can't say no, and you want to be recognized as being a firecracker. I'm just tired. Well, you're looking for an excuse to save face, perhaps. Well, I'll be fine once this event is done. Maybe you think that that's when the stress will end, but probably it won't. If people would just let me do my job, I'd be fine. Maybe you're unhappy about being seen as less than a stellar worker. It's not me, it's whatever. And maybe they don't see themselves as the problem. Okay. Next. So then now we know what volunteer burnout is, and we've probably all experienced to a certain degree. So the opposite of that is actually volunteer retention, and this is the key. This is what every board wants. They want to have people stay, but not too long. It's a good time, not a long time. That's the mantra. Good time, not a long time. Next. So just as we've been hearing the COVID-19 mantra, we're all in this together. So too are volunteers on your executive. You're all in this wonderful volunteer journey together. So it's really incumbent upon the leadership of your chapter to provide ongoing support and to expect it from your team as well. So there you go. All right, next. So I thought I would give you a case study. Tara will particularly enjoy this one, I'm sure. This is a true story. We're going to call her Jane Doe. I'm going to read it because it's a little bit lengthy. So Jane Doe is a parent who is completely engaged in her children's education. She believes that in order for them to be successful, she needs to be actively involved in her learning. And actually, as an aside, that's so true, so true. So any parent, whether their kids are in French immersion or not, if they're involved in their kids' education, fabulous. It's a great thing. She went through French immersion herself, and she knows she wants her children to have that unique learning experience as well. At the kindergarten registration evening, she learns about CPF and how it can help her support her kids as they learn French. She immediately and enthusiastically joins the organization. The executive notices her passion and recruits her to the executive. She's thrilled to be asked and honored to do her part. She takes on the role of elementary school rep. Over the next few years, she moves on to different positions: social media coordinator, secretary, treasurer, and eventually president. She stays in the role of president for 5 years, and she was on the executive for a total of 13 incredible years. Wow. Before she knows it, her kids are graduating and she's tired. She's really tired. And when she asks other on the executive who would like to step in to fill in the role of the president, nobody raises their hand because she has shoes that are way too big to fill. She's done everything for so long. Some of them have even been on the executive for a number of years themselves, and they've organized film festivals, fundraisers, and summer camps, and they're tired too. So the situation is dire. Everyone has lost their passion, not only for their CPF chapter, but also for volunteering. And it's not just an internal thing. Teachers are starting to notice because events that normally have taken place are all of a sudden not happening. Things like film festivals and maple sugar events and all those sorts of things are being skipped. So what happened? Well, and this is what really happened. When I went into kindergarten with my son, went into kindergarten, I was there. We were sent home this letter. It came home on like a day glow orange or hot pink piece of paper. It really stood out. You couldn't miss it. And it was a desperate plea for parents to step up, because if they didn't step up, then this wonderful organization, Canadian Parents for French, SANECH, because that was my chapter, was going to go under. And it shouldn't go under because it had done so much. And in fact, you may have heard way, way, way back in the beginning when French immersion was just coming to British Columbia that there was a yeah, school district where trustees even quit because they were so opposed to pandering, what they thought, to the Quebecois. That's what they thought. Guess where that was? It was in this school district. Anyway, so long story short is this desperate plea, it worked. I thought, oh my gosh, well, I don't know what this organization is. I have no idea, but I would hate to see it go belly up. So I went to the meeting, and another 14 people went to that meeting. And we all signed up that night, and we all got involved. And ta-da, wow, the chapter was resurrected. It was great. And we worked really hard, and I was involved in, I think I was the secretary, and then I think I was the VP, and then I was the president. And then I was out because we made a decision that nobody could stay on the executive in one position longer than 2 years, and actually 4 years tops for the whole thing was ideal. And if we could just find our own replacement who was well suited to that role, that would really help things along. So to the best of my knowledge, this chapter has still maintained that incredible positive energy, and I'm just so proud of it. So that was it was quite an experience, and that's why this topic, succession planning, is near and dear to my heart. All right, next slide, please. So burnout busting, yeah. No micromanaging. Leading from behind, yeah. Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, and not everybody's suited to specific roles. There's no such thing as a perfect employee or volunteer. So try not to ask people to do a job that they're not suited to. If somebody is terrified of public speaking, I don't think it's a good idea to have them in a role where they would have to do that, unless they've been able to find somebody that will take on that task for them. And then it's okay. But just knowing what are the best fits for those positions. The ideal scenario is giving your volunteer the freedom to achieve a goal in their way. It might not be exactly what you would do, but if they get the job done and it's successful, then you should be giving them all the credit. And that's called leading from behind. And it works beautifully. It really is something. It's not like you're micromanaging or you're saying, oh, do it my way, my way, my way. It's just let them find their way, and check in with them and make sure that they're knowing that they're appreciated and helping them along the way. And micromanaging basically is a way of saying that you don't trust them. So I don't recommend it. All right, next slide, please. So there's more tips there, as you can see. Creating work plans with timelines and deliverables. I mean, the more that's, if you have I love working from a chart where you know exactly where you stand, what you have to do, and when it's done. I love that sort of thing personally. It's not for everybody, but it's a strategy that works for me. And another thing is exposing people to different opportunities, different roles. It's a great training ground, quite frankly, because so many people, this is their first experience with volunteering. And I've been doing volunteer training with Volunteer Victoria for a couple of years now. And one of the workshops I do is on volunteer recruitment and recognition from different sectors of society. And one of the things we talk about is volunteer recognition. And the number one thing that volunteers want to know is if they're making a difference, if they're doing something that's actually making a difference. So if you can let your volunteers know that, yeah, they're making a difference, and this is why, this is the impact, like that's solid gold. So, and of course, then there comes a time sometimes when there's a volunteer who's just not going to do it. They're not carrying their weight, and maybe their attitude isn't positive for one reason or another. And that's okay. It's quite okay. But it means that either they find something else to do, or you say, maybe there's another organization that would love your enthusiasm for your real passion, which is whatever it happens to be. And that's okay, because not everybody's perfect in every single role. So don't worry about that. All right, next. So succession planning or continuity, that's what we want, passing that baton. Proactive succession planning, where everyone is an active participant, will take all the pressure off those executives that have felt overwhelmed and short on volunteers. Okay, next. So this is our branch policy regarding term of office. So for the BC Yukon branch, we can have 2 years from the end of the AGM to 2 years later. So, you know, and up to a lifetime maximum of 8 years. That's something I would never, ever recommend. It's perfectly fine in terms of the Society Act and in terms of the policies and procedures for CPF, but it's not ideal. It really isn't, because you're making yourself so indispensable that you're going to scare everybody away. And then when you're burnt out, nobody will step forward. So, but that's what ours is. And I think probably chapters probably have the same kind of term of office mandate. But check with your chapter policy manual. All right, next slide, please. So some things to think about right from the very beginning, as soon as a new executive starts, right after your AGM. So knowing your term of office and trying to communicate, or not trying, but communicating that with everybody on the executive, saying, this is what it says, this is what I think we should do, let's stick with this. And so if it's 2 years, 2 years, great, that's fine. A calendar to show start and end of term dates, job descriptions, of course. Yeah, you can see the list there. So let's say that you've been recruited as a fundraiser. You have a 2-year term, after which you may sign on for another 2-year term, take another position, or leave the board. After a maximum of 6 years, you have to leave the board. Let's say that's one scenario. After year 1, you start looking for your replacement. And it should be somebody who shows talent and aptitude and interest in that particular role. So if you're social media, right? Maybe you're the social media coordinator for your branch, for your chapter, sorry. Maybe somebody who's also tech inspired or is constantly on their phone and tweeting and Facebooking and doing all of that good stuff. Maybe that's something that they would enjoy. Then at the end of your term, you move into, let's say, the role of president, okay? And you stay in that role and then the person that you were mentoring moves into your role. Then you move into the president role for 2 years, and after year 1, you start looking to the current board or outside the board for somebody to take on that role. It's usually somebody from within, because then they feel confident, they know what's going on. Who would be a good leader and willing to move into that position? When somebody agrees to take on that role, at every opportunity, you should let them shadow you so that they can really get a good sense of what's involved. And it's not that difficult. It's easy, really. The president role is easier than some of the positions. I think the secretary, treasurer, those are very difficult ones. Not difficult, but they're more challenging. So they're going to shadow you. And then, for example, maybe they could take on some public speaking at an event. So that gets their feet wet a little bit. Or maybe they could try their hand at writing an advocacy brief for the school board. Then when your term ends, your recruit moves into your role, you move into the role of past president, and you mentor them further as they learn the ropes. But now it's their position, so then you need to let them put their own mark on things, right? Okay. Then, so that you can see some of the other things here, needs assessment. That's pretty important too. What do you need? What do you need to have on your board? And continuously recruiting, onboarding and training, mentorship, and an exit survey is a great thing too. Next slide, please. So this I stole from CPF National when they had their succession planning workshop back in October. And that's the link to it. You can see here that the first one, 2021 and 21-22 is member A, and then they move on to their third term and fourth term. It's kind of hard to, well, you can make this any way you like it, but it's kind of neat because then you can see that it's staggered. You don't want to have everybody over in column one. And then you don't want to have that because then everybody's finished at the same time too. So you do want to have a staggered board so that there's always going to be continuity on it. Okay, next slide. So it's been a while since I've been involved with a chapter, and the digital world has definitely creeped up and pretty much taken over in every area possible. But when we were running the chapter way back in the late 1990s, we did take all of our notes on a laptop or by hand. And so we had minutes, then they would be all typed up and circulated by email to the members of the executive. And then we would always keep a copy of the minutes in the monthly meeting folder. So trying to maintain all of these records properly is a big deal. And now I'm sure you probably have a combination of paper records and digital records. Maybe you have pictures on flash drive now, but maybe you have some that were actually printed out because they're historic, they're from the past. But maintaining your records is super important too, because that's another problem that we did run into was way too much stuff. It was just overwhelming, and we had boxes and boxes of it. And that was one of the deterrents that kept people from taking on the role of president, because they didn't want to have to store all that stuff. But I think now you could probably do it with a couple of those boxes and some file folders. I think you could probably do that, maybe a couple of flash drives. It probably would take care of it. But maintaining your records is really good, and then archiving when you need to. So if you do have paper records, then making sure that a digital copy is saved, and then getting rid of them so that you never have too much stuff to pass on. And then the who, what, when, where, why of your work, so that, for example, if you are doing, let's see, what's a good event? Cool. Concours. So who are your main contacts? Who are your judges? Who did you get to do the judging back when you had your district before people were selected to move on to the provincials? Those judges, you need to have a record of all of that. So this is where you have an opportunity to save all of that sort of thing. And then it's great to have success stories, challenges that your chapters come across, that history. I first met Jensen when he was doing a Where Are They Now? And it was really interesting because there were so many historical documents of really interesting people that had done so much that I'm sure, Jensen, you probably had an opportunity to get to know a lot of who were the kind of the movers and the shakers behind the organization way back when. And if there hadn't been a record of that, nobody would have been able to tell you anything. It would have been gone, lost, right? So, and then of course, storing everything, making sure that you're not storing it in leaky basement or something like that, or making sure that all the digital files are kept safe. So, all right, next slide. So how would you like your volunteers to answer this exit survey question? What do you like most about volunteering with your CPF chapter? And you can answer it yourself. You can think about that. What do you like best? And obviously in an exit survey, you'd be asking quite a bit more. You would be doing things like, what do you think the chapter does well or not so well? Do you feel like you were adequately trained? So anyway, hopefully, in answer to this question, hopefully they would say, I feel like I'm really making a difference. I really believe in the mission and vision of this organization. And if they say something like that, wow, that is likely what drew them to your chapter in the first place. And it's a great start. Hopefully they'll say, I love the people I work with. We share the same passion for FSL learning, and I have made some real friendships. That is really fantastic too. It would be miserable otherwise, wouldn't it? And hopefully they'll say, I respect the leadership of this organization and the way it's run. They're mission focused. They clearly value their volunteers, and they continuously listen and improve. Wow. And then hopefully they will say, I am so glad that I have been limited in the amount of volunteering that I can do in any one position. I have learned so much about fundraising, event planning, maintaining a budget, writing a brief, whatever it happens to be. And I look forward to continuing to serve on other boards as I go ahead in life, and share some of the best practices I've learned here. And if they say that, wow, well, congratulations, you nailed it. So that would be absolutely fantastic. But doing an exit survey with your volunteers is a fantastic exercise. Next slide. So we've looked at burnout as a consequence of not taking care of succession planning, of how burnout manifests and what can be done to fight it. Then we really look at succession planning best practices. There's one more component about retaining those really valuable volunteers that sit on your successful executive. And it's about having fun with them. It's not easy during times of COVID. You can't sort of go out and have a pub crawl night or a barbecue in someone's backyard or something like that. But one day you will be able to. But in the meantime, if there's a way to do something fun, I love Tara's idea of she's making some treats. She's doing some home baking and dropping them off at her executives. All the people on her executive, dropping them off at their home, and then they're going to Zoom together. Then I think that is really important. It's really important to remember that. I think somebody once said that they felt like this wasn't CPF. Somebody once said that the president, they always felt that the president had an agenda. Whenever they would do something like, oh, hi, how are you? Yeah, it's great. By the way, there was always something, there was always a little task that needed doing or something like that. So it was a bit off-putting. So if there's a way to really have sincere fun with your volunteers, that would be really, really great. I can say personally, from my volunteer work with CPF Saanich, I still have 4 extremely close friends that I made during those days. We go walking together all the time. We had, when we were allowed to sort of socially distance get together, we had an outdoor barbecue. It's just fantastic. So highly recommend. No pressure, just a good time. Get out and doing something social together. Next slide. So that's it. A few clouds, but overall pretty sunny. So thank you very much for your time. And like I said, we'll have this posted. And I hope that you are very successful in your succession planning.
So which one is you in the picture?
That's not me. It's just a picture I found on the internet. No, I do have plenty of pictures of my friends. I should have used it, but yeah, well, I didn't have their permission, did I? Yeah. No, we had one. Yeah, literally in the summertime.
Hey,
It was
Nancy.
just, yeah.
There was a couple of comments in the chat. Do you have any suggestions on how to get people initially to come out to meetings? Because I think that's kind of one of the areas that people are finding difficult right now.
Yeah, especially now. It would be very difficult. Oh boy. For me, it was this desperation. Yeah, that worked. I mean, that really worked. But hopefully your chapters are not feeling that kind of desperation. Let's see. Well, I'm going to put it out to all of you. If anybody has been able to recruit new volunteers, how did you do it? It seems to me that kindergarten is the prime territory, or if you have late French immersion, grade 6, something like that. That's, without meaning to sound rude about it, that's the low hanging fruit.